All right.
Rabbi said I can't start a fight in the morning.
So having learned the essential ideas that we've covered in chapter 2, you can understand the tremendous difference that the Baal Shem Tov made to the Jewish world. Because before the times of the Baal Shem Tov, the Jewish world was very much divided by class divisions. There were the upper class in the Jewish world were the Torah scholars. And those people who never got to learn were like outcasts. Torah scholars were not supposed to mix with them, have anything to do with them. To a certain degree, Jewish law encouraged that attitude because the laws of family purity and purity of food are very stringent, and you have to be rather learned and Yireh Shamayim to observe them properly. And since the masses of Jewish people, after the destruction of the temple, were not capable of absorbing all that information, so their food was suspected, not being properly tithed or prepared properly. And so the Torah scholar would not really mix socially with what were called the ordinary people, the Am Haaretz. And this led to a serious division, a class division. Comes along the Baal Shem Tov and says no, like we're learning here, that every single Jewish person has a holy neshama from the highest reaches of Hashem's essence. Remember the exercise we did of blowing, that you blow from, when a person blows, he blows from deep within, and the Torah says clearly that Hashem blows a soul into man, into the first man. And this led to a tremendous difference in behavior. The Baal Shem Tov is now befriending ordinary working people and arranging classes and learning with them and encouraging them to have self-esteem and to realize the great good things that they can accomplish, that they can learn and they can daven and they can do mitzvahs, and that their tshuva, their desire to be close to God, is very, very beloved in heaven. And one of the powerful mashalim that the Baal Shem Tov taught based on the Torah was when Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, comes to Mount Sinai. How did he get there? He was taking care of the sheep of Yisro. Yisro was a deeply spiritual person who he was like the high priest of idol worship. He was familiar with every form of idol worship extant in the world at that time. And he renounced them all in order to become a follower of the belief in one God, monotheism. And because of that, he had to run away to save his life. He was ostracized from the society of Midian where he lived. And Moshe Rabbeinu ended up working for him, taking care of his flocks, his sheep. And one sheep ran away, a little lamb ran away, and Moshe chased it. And it went all the way. He found it on a mountain, and it was drinking water in a little pond, or whatever you'd call it there. There was water. And the Medrash says, he said to the sheep, little sheep, why didn't you just let me know you wanted to drink? You didn't have to run away. And then Moshe looked up, and behold, there is a bush that's burning. And he looks more closely, and he sees the bush is burning, but it's not burning up. It's not consumed. And he goes to take a closer look at it, and Hashem speaks to him. That's his first prophecy. First time Hashem speaks to him.
How old was he?
And the Baal Shem Tov teaches about this, that when Hashem appeared to Moshe, he appeared to him as a fire in a bush, a thorny bush, not a grand tree that could be used for building the tabernacle, and not in a fruit tree that could nourish the heart of man, but in a thorny bush. And he felt this thorny bush was a symbol of the illiterate masses of the Jewish people who were enslaved in Egypt at that time. And the fire was the fire burning in the heart of a person who feels so distant from Hashem that he can't properly serve Hashem because he doesn't know how. And so Moshe turned to look at the thing more closely, says the Baal Shem Tov, that this was a movement of tshuva in the heart of Moshe, that Moshe felt that this was a symbol of a Jew whose spiritual level was higher even than his own, even higher than Moshe Rabbeinu's. Even though Moshe Rabbeinu was on the highest level intellectually of love and fear in God, he felt that this ordinary person was on a higher level because there's a fire of yearning in his heart that doesn't go out. Water quenches fire. Torah is like water. These people have no Torah. So the fire just keeps burning. So therefore, he dedicated himself. With this image, you can understand how the early Hasidic movement, the followers, this early group of Hasidim, just a handful of followers of the Hasidim, dedicated themselves to traveling around and teaching ordinary working people, farm people, working folk, teaching them stories from the Talmud, stories from the Torah, because they were keenly aware of this burning fire of love of Hashem in the heart of the ordinary people, which we understand from chapter 2, because they are aware of the holy neshama in every single person. And they connect to that. And so they were able, and this way, they were able to revive a generation that was terribly downcast, depressed, and to give them feelings of hope and to encourage them to grow and make spiritual progress. And we are the inheritors of that movement, Baruch Hashem. And when the Baal Shem Tov, he was a very great scholar. He wasn't a simple person just going around dancing in the city square, in the marketplace. He was a profound scholar and a profoundly spiritual person. And one time he had an aliyah of the neshama, Erev Rosh Hashanah. His neshama was way, way up there. And he comes to the chamber of the Mashiach. Now, if you suddenly found yourself in the room with the Mashiach, in the private room, like Yechidus, what would you say? What would you say? Say, good morning, Mashiach. How are you? How are you? You would say, yeah, how are you? What would you say?
I don't think I know what to say. I just feel like, nice.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Well, Anna, welcome, Anna.
What do people do?
So the Mashiach, so the Baal Shem Tov, he knew what to say because the whole story is told in the Talmud. Everything's in the Talmud. The story is there. You just have to know where to find it. The story is that Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi 2,000 years ago was like the Rebbe today. And Elijah the prophet, appeared to him regularly. And he said to him, why isn't Mashiach coming? And Elijah said, well, ask him yourself. Says, how do I know who he is? He says, you'll see him with the beggars outside the gates of Rome. Well, how I know which one is he? He says, because he have bandages on his legs. And the others may also have bandages on their legs, but there'll be a difference. That they will take off all their bandages and, bathe their legs and massage their legs and then put them back on. He will take off only one set of bandages and deal with one leg and leave the other leg in pain. And then he'll take care of the other leg. That's how you'll know the difference. And sure enough, there was a person like that. And so Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi went over to him and greeted him and said, Shalom Aleichem, Aleichem Shalom. And he said, Master, when are you coming? The Jewish people are suffering terribly. When are you coming to redeem them? So that's the story. And therefore, the Baal Shem Tov, when he had this aliyah of the neshama, he knew exactly what to say because it was in the Talmud. The whole story was there. He just said what Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said. It's a song. They made a song out of it. And so finding himself together with the Mashiach, that's exactly what he said. And the Mashiach replied to him, when your teachings will spread outward and be everywhere, in every city, in every suburb, in every street, in every block, in every neighborhood, in every home, then Mashiach will be here. So now you understand what you're all doing here, and it all comes because of this teaching, what we learned here in chapter 2. Here's Sharonel, just signed in online. Good morning, Sharonel. Leah Rappaport is here. Okay.
Rabbi, do we know how old Moshe was by the bush?
Someone said something?
I said something.
Tova?
Do we know how old Moshe was by the bush?
Yeah, he was 80. By the burning bush?
Yeah.
He was 80 years old. And then 40 years led the Jews out of Egypt through the desert. And at 120 on his birthday, which was the seventh day of Adar, coming up in a couple of months, he returned his neshama to its maker.
I have another question. Are you finished with the Rebbe? How did it start? Like, did he talk to you? Did you ask him? Did you write something? How did it happen?
Well, yeah, depends. If a bocher went into Yechidus by the Rebbe, he would write a note. And he would write in the notes his name, his mother's name, and he would ask a blessing or ask a question about something that was on his mind. But things changed over the years because in the early days, Rebbe had more time. The Rebbe took on more and more and more responsibilities all the time. And then there was and the number of followers, people, Hasidim grew, and they all wanted to be with the Rebbe, so they had to cut back. I remember when I had Yechidus the first time, so I asked my friends who were students here, what do I do? And they said, you just write. And they told me a kind of a bracha to ask for, like to be a Hasidic bocher, what a Hasidic bocher should be, connected to Hashem. And I went and I just put it on the desk in front of the Rebbe, and the Rebbe looked down, and then he spoke in a kind of song, like he was saying a mimer, Hasidus. You can hear online, the Rebbe saying a mimer. That's how it would sound. And then he looked up, he stopped, he looked up, and I knew it was over, so I backed out. It was like 30 seconds. I didn't say anything, no.
What did he say to you in like this song?
And the second time, I had to say this again the next year because I came from overseas. And the the people who lived here, the Bachrim in the yeshiva, because I was a Bachar, they could have yechidus once a year on their birthday. So that was different. I came from overseas, and I just did what my friends told me to do. In the second year, I had a lot of questions because I'd become engaged to be married, and I had a lot of questions. And my Kala was not. The Rebbe told my Kala not to come. She was in Israel. Mrs. Pape was in Israel, and she was going to come and meet my family. And the Rebbe said, "Don't come." So I had all these questions about how to set up our life. And the Rabbi Groner said, no questions in Yechidus. You can't ask any questions. So that was troubling. But I mean, I don't want to get into the whole thing because, this is Tanya. But so after the Rebbe just gave a bracha, he asked me questions because I was so nervous. I revised the little note that I wrote to try and cram to hint of all the questions without specifically asking them. Because of that, I left out some pertinent details. So the Rebbe had to ask me details. And then I got very confused and flustered and answered. And then the Rebbe just said brachas. It was just like brachas were pouring down from heaven. And then the rest of the day, that was like in the middle of the night, 2:00 in the morning. And I sat down that morning and I wrote out a couple of pages of what was on my mind. And the Rebbe respected that I had acceded to the request of the secretaries, because a lot of people said, did the Rebbe really mean this? Is this from the Rebbe, or is it just the secretaries trying to save time? And maybe the Rebbetzin pressured the secretaries that their husbands overworked, which he was. So there was room to think that you could get around what Rabbi Groner had said, but really it was from the Rebbe. It really was from the Rebbe. And I think the Rebbe showed his appreciation for the fact that I didn't ask any questions. And then I sat down after Yechidus and I wrote in all the questions. And when I went to Mincha that day, Rabbi Groner's or Rabbi Klein, one of the two, I forget which one, stopped me and said, Rebbe answered, I must have been Rabbi Groner, Rebbe answered your letter, answered all the questions. So after he'd been up talking to people the whole night long, till 5 a.m, and then back on the job very shortly afterwards, he took the trouble to deal with me and to deal with all the other people that he'd seen the night before. But let's say you found yourself together with the Mashiach, the Baal Shem Tov found himself together with the Mashiach, and he asked the same question that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi asked, when is the master coming? And the Mashiach answered him, when when the Jewish people will listen to my voice, then I will come. It's from the Psalms. We said Friday, Erev Shabbos, every week. In B'Kolesh Sishmo, when they will listen to my voice, says Hashem. That's what I will come when the Jewish people listen to my voice. Here it is. He is our God. We are the people of his flock, of his charge. With Soin Yadai, we're the flock. He's our shepherd, he takes care of us. Today, if we will listen to his voice. That's what the Moshiach answered to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. So the Baal Shem Tov came up, and when he said, he asked the same question, when is the master coming? And he gave him the same answer. Hayom, today. Hayom. The answer is Hayom, today. I'm coming today. Sishmo. If the Jewish people are going to listen to me, I'm coming today. So the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi How does the story go? The story goes like this. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi came and asked the Mashiach, when are you coming? And he said, today. So Rabbi Yeshua was very happy. But then the day passed and Mashiach had not come. So he went back the next day and he said, you said yesterday you're coming today. He said, yeah, but I only said half the pasuk. Today, if they will listen to my voice. And apparently the Jews at that time were not listening to the voice of Hashem. They were lax. It was a difficult time for them, and they weren't keeping Torah and mitzvahs in the best way. So there had to be a lot of outreach done. So now the Baal Shem Tov came and asked the same question, and he got the same answer. And the Baal Shem Tov said, no, you can't give me that answer. Because that answer you gave us 1,500 years ago, and we have listened to your voice. We've endured poverty, we've endured exile, we've endured persecutions, and we still keep Torah and mitzvahs. So we fulfilled our part of the pasuk. We have listened to your voice. Why? When is the master coming? He repeated the question, and he said, when your teachings will spread outward, then I will come. When your teachings are everywhere, the well springs, like gushing, overflowing well springs of knowledge. The Baal Shem Tov was very saddened, and it says he shed 2 tears. He shed 2 tears because it was going to take a long time. Because in those days, to spread the teachings of Mashiach, the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, the teachings of Hasidus, it meant you had to walk from place to place. The Jews were scattered all over. It's going to take a long time. So there were two schools of thought amongst the followers of the Baal Shem Tov, Hasidim, especially those who were especially close to the Baal Shem Tov. They were deeply affected by this idea of the 2 tiers, and they felt that the tzaddikim had to storm the heavens to bring Mashiach now. And the second school of thought was no. Mashiach said the well springs of Hasidic teachings have to spread out. That's what we have to do. We have to go out and teach people. We have to make Chabad houses, and we have to have Chabad on campus. And we have to have lunch and learn classes, and we have, and that a long time. It takes a long time, but it's speeding up because of the technological revolution has speeded things up. First came the Industrial Revolution, because this all happened before the Industrial Revolution was just in its incipient stages when this happened. So the Industrial Revolution speeded things up. We had locomotives, and then automobiles, and then in my lifetime, airplanes, and then jets. I remember when jets came along. That was amazing to see a plane that could fly without propellers. It was amazing, jets. And then the technological revolution. I remember in the 1980s when the fax machine. Can you imagine not having a fax machine? If I wanted to do it, I had to take everything by car wherever it had to go. Totally changed my whole modus operandi. And then email changed even that. Computers, working with computers, and now with a click, a person can speak and you Hanukkah live. The first time Hanukkah, they lit the menorah in 770, and they hooked up with England and Australia and New Zealand and European countries, France and Italy, Canada, all together. It was a revolution, technological revolution. So the teachings of Hasidus are spreading very rapidly, and it's snowballing. You know, when the Rebbe started, the Reish Chodesh Kislev is when all the shluchim get together. When the Rebbe started sending out shluchim, there were 20 shluchim. When he started sending, there were 2 shluchim. The Shliach Garelik went to Milan, and what's his name now? He has children in Montreal. Raskin. Raskin went to Morocco. These are the first two shluchim. And Lipsker, Raskin and Lipsker, and then I'm just weak with names. So bothersome when you first start to forget names. You see the face, you know who it is, and you can't access the name. And there was a third person also went out with him to Morocco. And that's how my wife's family got connected with Chabad. When they opened the school in Morocco, my father-in-law said, this is the only place where my children get a Yireh Shamayim education. He sent his children to Chabad. So there were two shluchim, three shluchim, and then it grew to be the Rebbe sent a shliach to France, Azimov, and then he sent a shliach to London. That was Shem Tov, and he sent shluchim went out in their ones and twos, and then it grew till there were 20, and then there were 30, and then there were 40, and then on the Rebbe's 70th birthday, he asked for 70 new shluchim. They should open up 70 new places until now, you know, today there's 5,600 shluchim now and going out. They pledged to open up 120 new outposts of shlichus in this coming year by Yud Aleph Nissen for the Rebbe's 120 years, in honor of the 20 years. Yes, Tehillah.
I guess two questions. One, was it the Frierdiker Rebbe who started the concept of
Shlichus?
Yeah.
The Frierdiker Rebbe sent shluchim. Yes, he did send shluchim out, but the idea of sending shluchim and encouraging those are people. The Rebbe sent them to certain places. There were certain individuals they were picked out and sent. The Frierdiker Rebbe was basically fighting a war for the survival of Judaism. So yeah, he had shluchim who were students of the yeshiva that he would tell them to take a group of boys and go somewhere where nobody will know them and educate this group of boys. And this was a war for survival of Judaism. I heard the Rebbe say, our Rebbe say, that if there are any Jews in Russia today who are Torah observant, they are the direct result of the Frierdiker Rebbe's efforts to educate a populace in a time when Jewish education was a criminal activity. And there was one for Brengen when the Frierdiker Rebbe said, I sent out a certain shliach to educate the boys in this particular town, and he was arrested and he was sent to jail for 10, 20 years. And I sent out a replacement and they arrested him. And now I'm going to send out another one. Does anyone want to go? It was a real Mesiris Nefesh. People went out and they were killed. They didn't come. They were sent to Siberia. They didn't come back. The Shagalov family. Rabbi Shagalov was a moil. He was secretly performing circumcisions. And he was a young man. He had 6 little children under the age of 7, maybe. And they arrested him. He was shot, never came back. There was a lot of cases like that. And the Frierdiker Rebbe had to have, believe me, when you have Mesiris Nefesh for yourself, you risk your own life, so you risk your own life. To send somebody else out knowing that they're going to get arrested and maybe not survive, that's very hard. That was the war the Frierdiker Rebbe fought. And he won. He won. Communism collapsed. And our Jews, observant Jews in almost 400 cities in Russia today. The Rebbe says they are the direct students of my father-in-law. But the Rebbe was the first one who said quite openly that he's calling for young men to go out on shlichus and to make Jewish centers, to build up communities, and to go far away, and the further away, the better. And that was the beginning of what we understand as shlichus today, where young men just go. They don't look for anybody to support them. They just ask permission to go into this from whoever is there. They ask permission that they can go there and not start a fight. That he should say, no, I don't want you here. I want somebody else here. So if they have permission, they're ready to go. Just give me the green light. They'll take on the world. Okay. So all this is because of what we're learning in here, that every single person has a holy neshama, which is a chelik elokam imal mamash. And it's like a coal that may look that it's cold, but there's a fire burning inside. And if you take a piece of a book and you fan the coal, you give it oxygen, it flames up. Everybody made a barbecue. That's a fire burning in the heart of every Jew. That's what we're learning about in this chapter. This is revolution. This is a revolution in Jewish history. What the Alter Rebbe is writing down here from the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. Okay. So we have the two analogies of the holiness of the Jewish soul, because it's like a person blowing, and it's like a child born from the thought, highest level of thought of the Father, and how the child is connected with the thought of the Father throughout the 9 months of pregnancy. And then the new idea we learned yesterday was that this connection remains even after the child is born. And then someone asked, I think it was you, Tehila, about can that connection become deepened? So I thought of this example. Let's say that a person was a great Torah scholar, and he lived in a society, a very repressive society, where you weren't allowed to get a Jewish education. You couldn't go to yeshiva unless you were vaccinated, and his parents didn't want to vaccinate him when he didn't go to yeshiva. Or maybe they were arrested because they didn't toe the party line. Or they used to do, if Jewish people in Russia didn't send their children to school on Shabbos, where they would be told that Judaism is an old wives' tale, and it's a lot of superstitious hogwash. If they didn't want to send, and they would be forced to break Shabbos, to do things that are not permitted on Shabbos, the children would be forced, and they would be fed non-kosher food. And if the parents didn't want to send the child to the state schools, then the child was taken away and put in an orphanage, and the parents could be sent to Siberia, to jail, or even to Siberia, without a suitcase. So a generation grows up. I'm in the middle of an analogy, Tova. So the generation grows up from this family that are cut off from knowledge of Judaism. They knew that my Zayda was a scholar. My Zayda was a chassid. I have a picture in my house of my Alta Zayda, my Zayda's father. He was a chassid. His son succumbed to assimilation here in America, and he died when my father was 10. And my father grew up in a much more assimilated atmosphere. And he didn't know the Ivris. He didn't know how to read Hebrew very well. And he didn't know much about Yomim Tovim and all this stuff. He knew he was Jewish. He joined the Jewish organization, Reformed Temple, because it was English, they had English. Okay. And the grandchildren didn't make it too many generations down the line after that. So now comes a child, let's say, of this family, a great-grandchild, who somehow meets a rabbi who says, if you go to yeshiva, you could be a great scholar. And he starts learning a little bit, and he likes it. And he keeps learning, and he has a talent for it. And he goes deep into, and there's certain areas of Torah that are very fascinating for him. and he pursues them. And in pursuing them, he comes across a certain branch of Torah scholarship. And what does he find? He finds that his great-grandfather had books on this subject. But there was a natiyah, there was a movement in his soul that took him down that same path, you see. Because he was connected to his father, connected to his father, connected to his grandfather, great-grandfather. And he ended up in the same intellectual place and added to it. There's a story that I read, a true story, about a certain person in Israel. He was a lawyer, and he fought, he hated the religious people with a passion. Wouldn't you know it? He had a son, went off to the army, had various experiences. He went to the Far East, Thailand, had almost got himself killed. Started to take interest in religious things, and came back to Israel, joined a group of young people that his father was fighting against them. Why was his father so passionately against religious people? Because he was an orphan. He was an orphan. They told him who he was. He was found in a garbage can. He was thrown out by his ultra-religious parents. He said, how could people be like that? And so he grew up with a bitter hatred of ultra-religious people who abandoned him and left him in a garbage pail, where he was picked up and he was saved and he was adopted. His son now took an interest in religion. And one of the things, especially around to Elul time, he heard the sound of the shofar, and it really got into him. He didn't know why. And one time he took a shofar and he blew it beautifully. He just took to it so naturally. And the story goes on about how this anti-religious lawyer happened to hear the shofar being blown, and it affected him. To make a long story short, the son who got attracted to the shofar and the father who heard the shofar, it affected a change in the father, because the whole story about his adoption was a lie. He was never thrown in a garbage can. Unfortunately, in the early years of the state of Israel, there was a very anti-religious policy, and children were kidnapped from their parents in the hospital and given up to adoption. And this boy was one of the twins. They gave the twin away with that story. There was a talent in that family. They were Taimani, Yemenite Jews, who suffered the brunt of a lot of this anti-religious feeling. And they had a tremendous talent for blowing shofar that had been in the family for generations. And so this young soldier started blowing shofar. He could do it. And then the story unfolds that the father and the son, they get together, and it all gets straightened out. It's a very moving story, very unusual story, but it illustrates the idea that, yes, you can come much closer to the original source in the father's brain. And Hashem help, but you have to do it. You have to do something to get there. And then you have to develop it yourself. Okay. That's more of a Farbrengen than a Tanya class. You girls, don't let me tell too many stories. Otherwise, we have to learn Tanya. Okay, tonight's Reish Chodesh. I hope that there'll be a Farbrengen for you. You all participate. Find out about this great day, because the turning point in our Hasidic lives, when we were blessed with that the Rebbe should survive and we were gifted with 14 years of the Rebbe.
Thank you.